If you're looking for a wedge that's probably going to help most golfers and is under 40 bucks, then check this out. What's happening, Panda Nation? Peter Von Panda here. I have in my hand here a wedge from Orlimar. Man, used to be a premium brand when I was growing up, and now it's kind of like a discount brand, but they still make some really interesting stuff, and they make it at a price point that can't be beat. So I picked this up because this is actually a wedge I've had before, and I gave it away, and I really loved it, and so I thought I would put it in the bag again. It might go in the spare bag, so when I have friends in town, but for most people, this is a wedge they need. It's called the Fat Sole, and that's really what separates this wedge from a lot of the more traditional players' wedges that are probably not appropriate for the average person. But if you're a beginner golfer, maybe you're an experienced golfer that struggles with the short game, I think you should probably check this out. I know it's going to fit your budget, and it just might help you out. So let's take a close look at this and see what makes it interesting. Alright, so here's the Orlimar Fat Sole, and I just want to show you what this looks like because it's kind of interesting. First of all, you know, if we were to look at it like this, it's got a really round toe. I mean, it kind of looks like a teardrop, much more than a lot of traditional wedges that have a little bit of a pointier edge here. I actually think this helps because you've got this really round edge that should cut through the grass, maybe even a little bit better. And even though this doesn't advertise itself as a high toe, this toe seems pretty high here. You can see the edges here are polished, so no grooves or anything there. So if you hit it off of this blasted surface here, obviously that's going to be very smooth, but hopefully you don't have that problem. But that's what it looks like at address, and it looks very forgiving because, you know, just how big this radius is. I mean, I can tell you that when you set this thing down, it looks big. It looks like a shovel. Here is why it's called the Fat Sole. You can see that the sole goes almost as far back as the top of the club here, but I've got it kind of angled forward just a little bit. You can see it's not quite the same. I mean, this is definitely further out, but this should be pretty vertical in the shot here, but you can see this back edge is higher than this front toe, and so even though I've got maybe a little bit of a sharper edge right here than I would like, you know, maybe something a little blunter that would prevent me from digging, you have this really long, gently sloping sole, and that's going to basically prevent you from digging this in the ground. You can imagine how hard it would be to put this much sole in the ground. We have some rails here, some negative spaces here, so that's going to help kind of cut through and give you a little bounce. But on the back here, nothing really high-tech. In fact, what you have here is just a huge cavernous opening. I can stick my finger almost all the way down to that edge there. So this whole thing is basically just cast, and there's no real special tech or floating inserts or anything like this. It's just painted. This black piece here might be a plastic insert because you can see the kind of the back of the casting there, but like I said, nothing in there. I will tell you it comes on the steel shaft, and it's labeled Orlimar and then has an Orlimar grip on it. But you know, it feels just like every other club, but I love this club. It allowed me to flop, it allowed me to not dig and, you know, thin or fat shots very much, and because it was cheap, I gave it away to my buddy who did not have a wedge, and he really loved it. And then I realized, man, this is just a really good wedge to have in the bag. And let's see if I can show you that this might be the best wedge you can buy for the money. Alright, so I have been playing a lot with this Orlimar wedge here, and I'm not going to get into everything here, but just in its stock configuration with the steel shaft and this big sole here makes it incredibly fun and easy to play with. So 60 degrees is kind of a lot, you know, it's not that 70 degree hummingbird wedge, but you can flop it by just squaring this and swinging through it with like a putt stroke here, you know. You'll get spin and you'll get loft. But one of the things that I really love about this is that it really truly doesn't dig. Man, you can see I have been playing the sucker out of deep grass and rough, and because you have this flange here that's nearly as long as the blade itself, it just skims stuff, it just floats over the top of things. So man, it's just great to play, especially out of sand or deep rough. The thing that I was worried most about this is if you are using this club and you're going to open it up to try to do a flop shot, can it do it? Now I just want to show you here that it doesn't actually look like it has a lot of bounce to it. You know, I mean, it definitely has some, but even if it's 12 degrees, a lot of 12-degree wedges here, because the flange ends here, it's a fairly dramatic angle, but because the edge is so far back, that if it is 10 or 12 degrees, it's a very gradual rise. So as you open this up, it doesn't really lift that club up as much as you might think. And so can you flop it? Well, I will tell you that the last round I only had about 2 feet of green to work with. The pin was right darn near the edge, and I was off in the rough, and I absolutely tried to flop this, and it worked beautifully. The ball just sat right where it landed. So you can absolutely do flop shots, open this club up, kind of swing outside in and just cut across the ball and really put some spin on it. So is this the best wedge ever? No, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, because of the design, I think this wedge is actually the perfect wedge for a lot of people and their tendencies as amateurs to dig or take big divots or not have enough loft to sit the ball on the green. And this club is like under 50 bucks. So if you are looking for a wedge that is actually good for amateurs and is very affordable, I think you're gonna love this. So if you want to pick up the Orlimar 60-degree Fat Sole wedge, I would highly recommend it. I'll put a link to it in the description below. Peter Von Panda. Out.
We can discover more and explore so much deeper.